You're listening to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. Here's your hosts, Jeremy and Pat.
Hello and welcome to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. This is episode 386 of the podcast. My name is Jeremy Deemer and I'll be your host. And I'm joined as always by my co-host. He's my cousin and he's high atop Wrigleyville tonight. How's it going, Pat?
It's going all right, Jeremy. Thanks for asking.
What a week. We have to discuss, as predicted by me last week, a 2-4 week, unfortunately, for the Cubs. We have a lot of news, happenings. We'll preview the week that will be, recap the week that was, and to help us talk all things Cubs, you know her from her work at Bleed Cubby Blue, Baseball HQ, and of course her appearances on this podcast, also coming to us from Wrigleyville tonight, Sara Sanchez. Sara, thanks for taking time out to talk Cubs with us tonight.
Oh, always happy to do it. And Patrick, what floor are you on?
16.
Okay, so you are higher above Wrigleyville than I am, but only by a handful of floors.
Yes,
I'm on 10.
yeah. We have the street covered, though, both sides of it.
And unfortunately, it was a rough week for the Cubs. The collective three of us were in attendance for one of the two losses against Cincinnati. Cubs dropped 2 out of 3 against the Reds, drop 2 out of 3 against the Cardinals. Always tough to turn around and do a podcast after having suffered through Cubs losing the series in St. Louis. Never fun. But let's get into the week that was here. It's extra difficult because the Brewers refuse to lose. They are currently on an impossible clip here. Sara, will the Brewers ever lose again?
They will. And I mean, baseball is going to baseball. So, they're going to follow this stretch. I actually don't know what the exact number is as of today, but for my column at Baseball HQ, the Playing Time Tomorrow column for the NL Central, I was looking at sort of the records and how things had shifted on Friday evening. And I think that since June 1st, the Brewers, when I calculated it, had something like a 708 or 734 win percentage. I mean, just like a truly absurd number, like the type of thing that they would break the all-time win record if they did it for an entire season. That is not going to happen. That's a torrid pace. That's a great couple of months. It's kind of incredible that they've done it for as long as they have. It's going to crumble at some point. And honestly, and I'm not trying to throw shade, like this is like just statistical regression and probabilities. Like if I were Milwaukee, I'd be a little upset that this run didn't start in September. Having it start in June means they're probably going to regress and be a normal-ish baseball team in September and October. But they basically never lose right now. And that is a particularly galling state of affairs for Cubs fans because the Cubs had their sort of torrid 640-ish win percentage bit in April and May. And since June, they've been like a very normal playoff team, 534, 543 type of team. And so when you have the Brewers operating at historical pace and the Cubs looking like just a regular wild card team, yeah, that stings. And you go from being 5 games up in the division to 6 games back real fast.
Well, let's hope that the regression begins a week from today. Timing couldn't work out better, really, when you think of it that way.
It's going to start sometime. It might as well start when the Brewers are playing 5 games at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, we did see an ex-post from Chief Cub that said since June 19th, the Brewers 34-9. The Cubs 22-22. So tough stretch here.
Including 10-11 since the break.
Yeah, unbelievable. We were talking about that 5-game series next week against the Brewers and how important that was going to be for the division. Now it's important to maintain your wild card status and potentially make up some ground in the division. But 6 games is tough if it's going to stick around that number.
Well, and I don't want to give any Cubs fans heart attacks, but the thing that I have been thinking about, worried about, more than a little concerned about since the schedule came out is that the Cubs have 6 games at the end of the season against the Mets and the Cardinals. And those games will not be gimmies. right? Like even if the Mets are likely to be in that wild card divisional
Sure.
hunt, but even if they're not, they will want to beat the Cubs. There's some history there, and they're not going to just like throw in the towel so the Cubs can make it to the playoffs. And similarly, the same is true with the Cardinals. We just saw how hard the Cardinals played the Cubs in St. Louis. We are their World Series when it's the last, 3-ish games of the season. So I don't want to make people panic because it is a really good Cubs team and they still have something like a 70% chance to be in the playoffs or to make the postseason or whatever. The percentages are high and the probabilities are good, but it's not hard to squint and see those 5 games against the Brewers going poorly and those 6 games looming at the end of the season, and they collapse. We're watching them kind of collapse right now, so we know they have it in them.
The Cubs lost 2 of 3 against the Reds, and the Reds are that team right outside the wild card now, 2 games behind the Mets as of the time of this recording.
Yeah, the Cubs are basically equidistant between the Brewers and the Reds.
Yeah. We were at the game on Monday when Soroka was making his Cubs debut. The big Cubs
only gave up 1 run.
Trade deadline. Yes,
Yeah,
the Cubs trade deadline acquisition.
He did strike out the side in the first.
He did.
Gave up a home run and left with a shoulder injury. It was one of those, oh no, he's out already. What's going on? What's the problem? Is this a bullpen situation? No, it's an injury. It was devastating to hear. So just an overall, you thought the trade deadline was disappointing before this. It just couldn't stop not working out for the Cubs here.
The Soroka thing is, I'm sorry, I have very little sympathy for this. Soroka's velo was down for 3 games in a row prior to the trade deadline. And I actually, in a vacuum, like who Mike Soroka is, the Cubs defense, what he can do as an innings eater, as a guy who becomes like your long man in the bullpen after Assad and Tyon are back, didn't hate it. Would put Colin Ray ahead of him in terms of starting games, but wouldn't necessarily put Ben Brown ahead of him, just depending on how things were going. That cannot be your only starting pitching addition with that kind of question mark looming on the velo front. And I know there was reporting that Soroka had an MRI done that showed no structural damage or whatever, but when a guy's velo is down considerably 3 games in a row right before you trade for him, one of 2 things has to happen. One, you probably need a backup move for another starting pitcher because you cannot rely on the guy whose velo was down actually working out. And 2, you better be extremely certain that there is a mechanical issue that you can fix immediately upon that person joining your squad. And just based on what we all saw Monday night, we were all there, like they were not certain of that. And the second Soroka tried to reach back, I think what he described was he tried to reach back for a little bit extra to get out of the inning and he felt it. And now you can't go get another starting pitcher. Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that the goal was to get a playoff caliber starting pitcher and a Soroka type, back of the rotation kind of guy to help with depth. And so to all the people saying, well, the price is too high or you would have to give up too much to get a top pitcher. Well, you could have done it in the off season. You could have developed a pitcher in the last 10 years. There are a lot of things you could have done, right, to get to where we are, but we are where we are. And, I don't give management a buy because they can't develop pitching and they didn't make moves in the offseason when they had extra money after giving Cody Bellinger away for cash. So, you know what? They said, we'll wait till the deadline and then we'll make the team better. And they had the chance. And this is what they did. And they failed to do that. So they have to own up to that. I mean, that's the way it goes, right?
The frustration continued on the field that Dansby Swanson missing first base on a play that could have tied the game. And that was it. When the call didn't go that way, game was over. And it was really disappointing that the game could end, that the Cubs rally could end in that type of fashion.
I am really not trying to be a downer tonight, I swear. But I have concerns about Dansby Swanson. because his bat kind of never rose to the level it had in the season before the Cubs signed him. And nobody expected it to. No. Like, that was a super outlier season for him offensively. Like, I didn't expect him to be that guy. But his glove was elite and was supposed to stay an elite glove. And at the moment, I think I looked at a list, he's like at 0 or negative. He is not among the league leaders in outs above average or defensive run save or any of the things that you want to get out of your shortstop. And I have a question for the two of you. And I'm not trying to be, I understand that's Dansby's job at the moment because of the money he makes. Nico looks like a better shortstop to me right now.
Pat.
Yeah, I mean, it's problematic to say the least. And
my Debbie Downer routine, but like, I don't know, man, mix it up. You got to do something. You're losing to the Reds and the Cardinals. Continue.
Yeah, I think the frustrating part with Dansby Swanson this year, and maybe it's my just having a confirmation bias, but doesn't feel like, I mean, with one or two examples to the contrary, it seems like he has really struggled with people on base all season long, getting hits, right? Which makes his outs much more noticeable, right? You notice an out when there's second and third and 1 out and a guy strikes out versus when there's 2 outs and nobody on and a guy strikes out. It feels like he's doing a lot of that. So you couple that with, and look, he's had, and the other part is, he's had some decent power numbers this year, probably better than usual. And yet overall, he's not getting any younger. He's got he's a 3-WAR. He's going to be a 4-WAR player, maybe. I guess if you look at WAR, I mean, WAR is a weird stat, but next year he'll be 32. And, I don't think we'll look back on his tenure and say that he exceeded expectations. How about that? At this point, we're just hoping he can hold on and kind of sort of be in the range of what we'd hope for, I think, for the life of the contract.
Yeah, but at 31 years old that he is now, I think you're right, Sarah. You could stand to see more Nico at short and give Dansby some time off, give him some days off here and there.
To Patrick's point, Dansby is hitting 174 with runners in scoring position this season and 208 with men on base. He is hitting 9th. Your highest paid player is hitting 8th and 9th as you try to get the offense going in a stretch run. And look, he is a good defender. So I don't want to be like he's a bad defender, but he's not giving you that elite level of defense that they got from him the first couple of seasons where it was like, oh, check out the defensive leaderboards. You've got Nico and Dansby 1-2. Like, Dansby has really fallen off in that scheme. And so they have to do something different. And maybe it is, I don't know if it's an arm or range issue. I don't know if it's something else, but Nico had a better arm strength metric the last time I looked at this was admittedly more than a year ago. If that is part of the problem, switching that up, giving Dansby more time off, as you were saying, Jeremy, putting Willie Castro has been great, by the way. We're kind of ragging on the trade deadline a little bit, and we should, but Willie Castro, as advertised, very Nick Castellanos as a Cub vibes. He's given me Willie can do anything. So I'm here for that. But something's off with Dansby this year. I don't know if we're going to find out there was an injury or something else, or I don't know. But it's not normal. And it's not who the Cubs signed. And they need him to be much, much, much better.
A guy who has been playing great is Cade Horton, continuing. He was the one who pitched the Cubs to victory against the Reds, 5 2/3 innings, only 2 hits, all shutout, 6 strikeouts, not a walk. We all worry, Sarah, about how long can Cade Horton pitch this season, as the Cubs are looking at a playoff run here as a potential wild card team or division winner.
It's the innings question is kind of devastating for this rotation because the two guys who really have been outstanding are Cade Horton, as you just mentioned. I think he has now the longest scoreless streak for a five game stretch for a Cubs starter rookie in history or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the stat was, but he's doing like crazy good stuff for
since like Bill Hands or somebody.
Yeah, like some names you've never heard of, right? Like some guy I'm like, oh, that guy's in the history books. But he's pitched more innings than he did last year by a lot, and he's coming off an injury. And they need Cade Horton not to just be good this year. They need Cade Horton to be good next year and the year after, and they need him to stay healthy. Similarly, Matthew Boyd is in the same boat. Like, sure. I love what Matthew Boyd has done. Great signing. Would do it again in a heartbeat. He signed for next year too. You want him to be throwing for you next year too, right? Like, you don't want him to get hurt now and be out for a season. And Javier Assad and Jamison Taillon can eat some of those innings, but they're not the type of elite pitchers or have the potential that Horton or Boyd have. The Cubs really needed an arm to slot into like that SP3 range to back up what Boyd and Shota are doing. And I am very nervous about innings. I am very nervous about defense. I just looked. Dansby had 17 outs above average last season, and he has 1 this season.
He's got a month and a half to make it up. Better get going. Cade Horton, I think, with his 108 innings he's pitched so far this year, they're counting the minors. They're doing the best they can to limit the amount of innings he throws and the pitches he throws. So you see him come out a lot in 5 2/3 innings or 6 innings or 5 innings even during the scoreless stretch when he probably could have gone a little bit deeper, but the first sign of trouble or fatigue, they want to get him out because they've got to manage that. And I noticed that too with some of the days off they've had. They've been trying to stretch it out a little bit so that he doesn't get, because I think they realize that if they are going to make a run in October, he has to be part of it, right? So they don't have the luxury of burning him out now and then not having him available. If you look I looked today at the last 30 days, counting today, Cubs have been off 8 of the last 30 days. They're not going to be off 8 of the next 30 days, I can tell you that. So they've really been able to manage, like they're off last Thursday and they're off today, right? So 2 days in this 5-day stretch. They've been able to stretch people out, skip the 5th starter a bunch of times, thank you very much, which is going to, if Taillon or Assad don't get here soon, I think we'll start to see this week the damage that can be done when you don't have a 5th starter. Thank God Colin Ray's kind of held it together the last couple of weeks and given him some good outings to help, with the 4th starter, because they've been kind of playing with 3.5 starters for a while now. But Cade Horton is somebody who, you're only going to get 5 or 6 innings to start out of probably the rest of the way until you get to October. So another reason why, whether it's extra bullpen help or, well, too late now, right, for a starting pitcher, but they need to be able to manage that. I mean, and maybe with the 2 injured players coming back, Assad's the kind of guy you could throw 2 or 3 innings out of a bullpen. Wouldn't that be nice sometime? But we've been saying that all year. He hasn't thrown a pitch yet. So let's not count those chickens before they're hatched.
Question for y'all, because this is a wild idea that caught my attention, and he seems to have cleared waivers now. Cubs would be interested in a non-playoff eligible Marcus Stroman. Released by the Yankees. Nobody claimed him because they didn't want to be on the hook for the salary. Like, I'm pretty sure you can tender that guy a deal now for the league minimum and just give him a shot to eat innings. If I'm Jed, I'm making that call already. And if he's not making that call for any reason whatsoever, like Stroman left on bad terms, we didn't like how he opted out, or we don't anything, like, they should get real. Because I don't think there's a better innings eater out there. And I'm not even talking, you don't need Stroman to give you 5. Have him give you 3 and piggyback him with Ben Brown and like make it work. You know what I mean? Anyway, just a wild idea. And I don't think anybody's picked him up yet.
I think if you're Theo, you make that move, but if you're Jed, you don't.
Well, that's unfortunate because Theo is all advising the Red Sox and they are also in the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
That's a great call. There's options. There's things to be done.
And at this point, it's the worst of the bad options because you've put yourself in a position where that's all you have.
Right.
But
And he won't be eligible for the playoffs. Like you missed that boat, but like, whatever, man, like you
Get
missed
there.
it. Like you got to get to the playoffs and hopefully have Matthew Boyd still capable of throwing reliable innings.
Or have faith in the players in your minor league system to come up and fulfill that role, which it seems like they don't have a lot of faith in and have been proven correct when they brought guys up. It's just they have not been able to get much out of the guys who, I mean, whether it's the Jordan Wickses or whether it's Nate Pearson or any guys at that level. It's been really an ugly go around.
Yeah, Wicks really fell off this season. I thought he was going to get some starts that would be meaningful, and he has struggled all year long.
Hodge has struggled, sadly. I was high on him. Yeah.
Well, that's depressing. I will say
Ethan Roberts, I mean, there's just nobody's been able to step up there from that group.
I think they still have Phil Bickford kicking around Iowa, and I bet they're reluctant to call him up because if they call him up, they can't option him back. But that's a potential bullpen arm who could do some damage. I mean, they can play around with the opener bit with Ben Brown. I don't know what's going on where he pitches better as long as somebody else is in front of him, but fine. I don't even care. Give Drew Pomerantz an inning and then bring in Ben Brown. I'm here for it. The thing you were just saying about the days off, they have been so fortunate with days off. And I believe they're about to enter a stretch where they play 14 games in 13 days. So days off are over. And they need innings out of these guys. And they have at least two guys who have to be on like the strictest watch possible. And a bunch of bullpen guys who are good 80% of the time, with the exception of Daniel Palencia.
Yep, with the exception of him,
Daniel Palencia. Taylor Rogers has been all right, but everybody else has kind of had like a moment where you've been like, oh yikes.
Speaking of roster issues, I hear Miguel Amaya may be coming back this week, which will necessitate the dropping of either Reese McGuire, who will probably be picked up by another team because he's out of options, or John Birdie. I know what I would do. Any thoughts on that, Jeremy, as to how you would handle that? I know it's unconventional to go with the three catchers, but the 79 Pirates did, and they won the World Series. I'll just say that.
So did the 2016 Cubs.
Yes.
That's right.
Two teams.
That's right. I'm fine with going with I'd like to see three catchers until Carson Kelly's just finished. I'd
rather have Carson Kelly pinch hit than John Birdie.
Correct. Yeah. We have no room for Birdie here on the team anymore. In a world where I have Willie Castro on the team, I'm keeping three catchers.
In a world where a 492 OPS just isn't going to cut it.
No. But I am excited to see. This is a great time for Amaya to come back because we've seen the drop off here with Kelly offensively over the recent time here. So I'm ready to see Miguel Amaya back, and I hope that he can get back to where he was playing before he got injured.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for John Birdie for 1 second, and not just because he can pitch, apparently. I think he's pitched more than he's played like the field recently, which is kind of wild. If anything were to happen to Willie Castro, or if Dansby is actually dealing with an injury or something like that, you cannot put Reese McGuire at second or short or third. At least John Birdie can play a serviceable infield in the event.
You could put Shaw at second and move corner to short, right?
You could. Yeah, there's ways you can mix and match it. And honestly,
Old Man Turner at third. Well, somebody, I don't know. Somebody.
Old Man Turner, the guy who I'm cranky about being blocked right now is Jonathan Long. And I understand that Justin Turner brings intangibles, and we all see them. I'm not questioning that. I'm a big believer in intangibles. It's part of why I was Team Wilson Contreras for a very long time. But Jonathan Long is raking right now and can play first base. They've tried him at third a little bit. I don't think he can play anywhere up the middle. And I think he's just blocked, man. They can't bring up a guy who is hitting the cover off the ball because they have to give Justin Turner at bats.
Yeah, and I'm no huge supporter of Reese McGuire. He's a 30-year-old journeyman catcher. But if you're going to cut him from your team, you need to replace him with somebody who can hit as well or better than him, because our bench is not strong enough otherwise. And that's where Birdie's fast and can do other things, but sliding's not one of them. But the reality is we just can't afford to have the Cubs can't afford to have a guy with a 492 OPS on the bench, because the bench players aren't good enough to make up for it. I mean, there's no room for that.
Well, and you see how big of an impact Willie Castro existing and being able to play has already had. Like the reason the Cubs are like 2-4 over the last week instead of 0-6 is because Willie Castro gets hits in good situations and gives guys days off, in my opinion. The bench has been an issue for a while now. I thought the bench was a curious construction in March, and I've not changed on that position. But yeah, they've got some work to do, and they missed their biggest chance to do anything impactful at the trade deadline. So I'm not all that worried. Like, Kyle Tucker is going to be Kyle Tucker again. Pete Crow Armstrong's going to bust out of his slump. Like, I'm not worried about anything like that. What Matt Shaw's been doing recently has been outstanding. But this, as constructed, looks like a team that could very well collapse in September to me.
The Matt Shaw continuing to hit well into the Cardinals series as well. That was exciting to see. But nobody beat up the Cardinals as much as Michael Busch. Very, very fun to watch Michael Busch coming out of his slump here against the Cardinals. Pat, your thoughts on Michael Busch?
Yeah, did he have 7 home runs against the Cardinals now, or something like that? He's moving up the Cubs pantheon of all-time home runs in a single season against the Cardinals. And remember, there was a time when we played them like 18 times a year, and now we don't. So it's even more impressive on a per batted basis. Especially because they don't even want to play against lefties half the time. So imagine that. But he's up there almost at the Sosa. I think Sosa's the record probably for home runs against the Cardinals. So it's always fun to have. It's nice to have a Cardinal killer, because there have been plenty of Cub killers who are on the Cardinals. So it's almost like turnabout is fair play, I think. And then with Matt Shaw, I mean, his numbers since the All-Star break, 339 average, 797 OPS, 7 homers, 15 RBIs, an entire WAR just by himself in these games. I mean, as poorly as the rest of the team has hit, he's been sort of one of the constants offensively, which has come at a good time, frankly. Because, when he was struggling earlier in the year, they didn't need him as much on offense because everybody else was hitting well. And now that they're not, he's kind of picked up his teammates. And it also gives you some hope that maybe he's actually the third baseman or second baseman or something of the future, as opposed to a bust, or a guy who's just not quite good. I think a lot of Cubs fans still have PTSD from the Matt Mervis era, and they're like, they get high expectations. And completely different players in a lot of respects. But, we build on expectations of players, and when it doesn't work out, it's devastating, because we put so many emotional eggs in those baskets, and then when they do, like PCA, then everybody's so relieved that they just love the guy. So hopefully Matt Shaw will be that guy, especially after trading Cam Smith, right?
Yeah, Sarah, you've got good defense and with Matt Shaw for most of the season, and then now the offense has come around. So it's that's one thing. At the trade deadline, we were all hoping, we were all, maybe Suarez, maybe we can upgrade third base. But if Matt Shaw continues to hit this way, that'll be a huge, huge boost for the offense, especially when everyone else seems to be struggling. Yeah,
a huge shout out to what Matt Shaw has done. The bat did not look major league ready for the first 3 months of the season, and he went down to AAA, worked on it, came back. Those that didn't really pay dividends immediately for him. Like, he had some flashes of more power, but didn't really click. It really didn't turn on until the All-Star break, like y'all were saying. And I like Matt Shaw a lot. I think that there was a time, probably a couple of months ago, where I was nervous about the Cam Smith Matt Shaw comparison, mainly because Cam Smith is a year or so behind Matt Shaw, just developmentally, in terms of like how many minor league seasons he's had, all of that type of stuff. And he seemed like he was catching on at the major league level faster than Shaw. I was also nervous because the Cubs really needed Shaw to be ready now. Like, they needed somebody who could play third base on a competitive team now. And if that was not going to
every
happen,
5 years.
If that wasn't going to happen, they needed to upgrade like stat, right? I think Shaw has made a compelling case that he's made those adjustments and they're sticky. I'm very proud of Past Me for not dropping him in the fantasy leagues where I had him. And it was hard. There were days where I was like, this might be over, but I'd find a way to keep him on my bench and not drop him. So Matt Shaw's great. I wonder, one of the things that seems to be missing from this team, and this may be a little bit of a foreshadowing for where we're going to go talking about the Brewers for a second. But the Brewers have really been good at letting their young guys come up and make an impact. And the Cubs really have not. Like Moises Ballesteros gets a big hit and gets sent down immediately, right? It's like Owen Casey and Kevin Alcantara, by all accounts, from the people who watch the iCubs all the time and from my very minimal eye test when I was down in Des Moines for a couple of weeks, they look ready to me. They look good. And the roster is constructed in such a way that the Cubs are not able to bring their young talent up to make an impact at the major league level.
Ever.
And that is a problem because you've got the way playoff runs happen and the way these teams are built, you have those young guys come up and they do big things, right? Like that was the Kyle Schwarber role in 2015. It was the Wilson Contreras role in 2016. Like you have to have that guy. And all of those guys for the Cubs are in Iowa because of weird roster construction issues. And there's like almost no path for them to break through. And that seems like a miss.
That's why getting Kyle Tucker, while a great move from a baseball getting a star's perspective, was a bit curious because it really did. And even if they traded Cody Bellinger, they really locked themselves in. They had to move Suzuki to DH, and with PCA working out, thankfully, in center field, there just weren't any spots left. And I know Counsell, I'm sure, would be pained to bench or rest Ian Happ, at this point of the year. But not having I would rather have Ballesteros off the bench, even at this point, like, okay, so let's say he's not getting regular at bats every single day. Okay, I don't know, like. It feels like they wait till these guys are 25 or 26 and then they just get rid of them, and at some point you just have to get, and maybe you do catch lightning in a bottle and that'd be great. Remember the year they traded Nelson Velasquez, who, didn't have a great distinguished career, but for the month after they traded me, like 14 home runs or something with the Royals.
17 for Jose Cuas, man. And I am still hearing about it because my problem with that trade, look, Nelson Velasquez had some issues. He swings too much and he's got that power profile a lot of guys have where they're like a 35% K rate, but they've got some slug. The problem was Nelson Velasquez could have been turned at some point in his minor league career into way more than a middle reliever with like a sidearm trick that you thought might help you for a couple of months. And that's where the Cubs fail, in my opinion, is they're going to, someday we are staring down the barrel of like the DFA of Kevin Alcantara, or like they DFA'd Alexander Canario. Canario's struggling with the Pirates, man, but he's getting at bats every day and he has some power. Like you could have turned Canario into something. You didn't have to DFA him because he was out of options and you didn't have a spot on your bench. Like trade him for.
Well, and this is the problem for all the talk of not wanting to trade prospects and how terribly reckless it would be. They've got 3 near major league ready outfielders. Okay. But guess what? They have like 4 outfielders already on the major league team currently who are going to be here next year. Well, not Tucker, I should say. 3 of them will still be here probably. But, 2 with no trade clauses. They're oversaturated in that. So that's where the GM has to be creative and figure out how to best manage the roster. And they are, and it does feel like this has been a recurring theme the last, say, the first couple of years of Hoyer's administration. I give him a pass on this part of it because the team was just so bad everywhere, it didn't matter. But the last 2 years in particular, now this year 3, just feels like the pieces don't fit. It's like a jigsaw puzzle where the pieces just don't fit right. And it seems like there's more talent in the system that doesn't get utilized because, like you said, people get blocked at the wrong positions, and then the other positions where you lack depth entirely, you have injuries, and then you're just completely devastated. And some of that's luck, but some of that also is constructing an organizational roster where things are in cadence.
Well, and the one thing I want to add to that, I agree with everything you just said, but I think this makes it hard for Hoyer to get the deals done that he wants to do, because everybody in Major League Baseball can look at a 40-man just like we just did and see that the Cubs have nowhere for Owen Casey or Kevin Alcantara to go. So they're going to lowball you on those guys because they can't.
There's no leverage anywhere. The Cubs are exposed everywhere. And yeah,
like
absolutely.
corner outfielders just don't have the prospect pedigree that a shortstop or a center fielder does. And they certainly don't have the prospect pedigree that a starting pitcher does. So it's like you're trying to trade. It's almost like it's going to sound weird, but like I'm seeing all these arguments about WAR on Twitter, and I get really frustrated by them because people clearly don't understand how WAR is constructed. And like, there are very good reasons that PCA playing center field has more WAR from his defense than than Shohei Ohtani gets as a designated hitter. But like, there's just weird stuff going on there, right? Like, and Shohei hasn't pitched the whole season, so he doesn't have that boost that he should have. Anyway, the primo positions in terms of WAR are center field, shortstop, and weirdly catcher, but catcher WAR is very different than every other type of WAR, so we should exclude it from consideration for these purposes, because it's so much harder to play those positions than it is to play a corner or than it is to play first base, right? Which is why the value of a Michael Busch is very different than the value of a Pete Crow Armstrong at any point in time. And I'm sure the front office is frustrated by it. I share their frustration, but that is why they are paid and theoretically extended to build the roster. And I just can't believe we're in for multiple more years of this. Like, I've never wanted a 4 more years chant less.
Well, let's look ahead. We're going to talk about next week, but I'm eyeballing 2 weeks from now with that 5-game series with the Brewers. Is it possible that the Cubs will be close enough to be playing for some sort of division pace? Are they keeping up division pace wise with the Brewers, or is it just to hang on to the wild card?
We're officially 6.5 back right now. So, I mean, if you win 4 out of 5 and you get to within 3.5 back in the middle of August, God knows the Cubs have blown bigger leads. It blew a 5.5 game lead to the Brewers in 2018, right? Like after Labor Day when Rizzo hit the home run off Hader and to win the game, except we didn't because it was on the road. And I forget who was it, Marmol or somebody, I don't know. Somebody came in.
They've all blown them at some point in time.
Yeah, not Marmol. Hector Rodon or something. Somebody came in and blew the game, and it was like, okay, well, that's done. And then we just, collapsed on the stretch. So, yeah, the bottom line is you can, especially if the Brewers start playing more realistically. Although I will give them credit for this. The Brewers have a very deep and pretty strong starting rotation. So I don't see them having prolonged slumps necessarily, but I do see them playing into more bad luck and losing games because they've been winning a bunch of games they shouldn't win. They'll start losing a couple games they should win probably. But yeah, you want to get out of this series against the Brewers and still, be 4 back. I mean, if you're 5 or 6 back, if you start losing the tiebreaker, then it's going to get harder, especially because we don't have a fit starter or starters.
Yeah, I was actually just looking at starters for this. I do want to talk about this upcoming week, though, because I think there's a fly in the ointment that we need to talk about that's going to be interesting. But I'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about the Brewers first. So remind me to come back to this Pirates series that is looming after the Blue Jays. So RotoWire has this great fantasy tool, if you're subscribed there, where they will project out starting pitching for 3-4 weeks. And, obviously things can change in 3 or 4 weeks, but you can get a pretty good idea of what the rotations are going to look like. And they're very, very good at these projections. According to RotoWire, the Brewers should be throwing against the Cubs Freddie Peralta and Tobias Myers for the doubleheader, Brandon Woodruff, then Jacob Mizorowski, then Quinn Priester wraps up the set. That is rough. I was kind of hoping that Mizorowski wouldn't be off the IL at that point in time, but it looks like he's already thrown a 60-pitch sim game, so he's probably going to be just fine by the time that comes up. That matches up with the Cubs throwing the following guys: Cade Horton and Jamison Tyon on the doubleheader. I disagree with RotoWire here. I think Assad is probably closer than Tyon and has looked better in his rehab start. So I think Tyon probably becomes Assad there. And then Matthew Boyd, Colin Ray, and Shota. I think that head-to-head, the Cubs have a chance there, assuming everybody is healthy and all those pieces fall into place. I do think, though, Assad is going to be starting games in Chicago before Tyon, as long as nothing gets aggravated or weird.
Looking at next week, to get to that Brewers series, the Cubs cannot afford to have another rough 2-4 week here, but they're playing in Toronto against the first place Blue Jays.
Yeah, FYI, that's the best team in the American League.
Yes, I've been to multiple Blue Jays games this year in Toronto, and this team is good, and they're fun to watch. The probables are Ben Brown against Jose Barrios, and then Cade Horton against Kevin Guzman, and Matthew Boyd against Max Scherzer.
Who I thought was on Social Security, but apparently he's still pitching.
Two things can be true. And so you have a tough schedule there, and then 3 against the Pittsburgh Pirates back at home. I'm curious, Sarah, tell me about this potential fly in the ointment for this Pirates series.
So the thing that's happening with the Pirates right now, and you have in the notes correctly that the Cubs probably miss Paul Skeens here, which is great.
That's great.
But the guy that they probably don't miss is Bubba Chandler.
Yeah,
so there is a lot of chatter on the Pittsburgh radio media market right now about why has Bubba Chandler not been called up already. He hasn't had quite the pristine pedigree that Skeens had right before his call up last year. He was elite through about Memorial Day, and then he had a couple of rough outings, probably because he hadn't been called up yet. And he's like, why am I still in AAA? But he's gotten it really back on track since then. He is a pitcher in the maybe not Skeens caliber, but certainly in the Freddie Peralta caliber. And I have a hunch, if I am the Pirates, they're going to do exactly what they did when they called up Skeens, who you recall made his debut against the Chicago Cubs.
Sure did.
Because that is a day that they can pack that park, and that is a day that they can sell tickets for a lot of money. And Bubba Chandler would match up real nice on that August 15th date against the Cubs instead of Mike Burrows.
Now, on the flip side, we're going to miss Keller as well as Skeens. So all things considered, it could be worse. But yeah, that is the kind of a bummer if Chandler pitches. If not,
my bad. That game is in Chicago, so it wouldn't pack their park. So I could be off on that. But the timeline matches though. Yeah. My apologies, Patrick.
Yeah, no, if we could somehow miss him as well as those other two pitchers, we could really get a soft landing here with the remaining Pirates pitchers. Like if they do call up somebody or throw a bullpen game and then have the other two starters, I think it's Heaney and somebody else that you know, Jeremy.
Ashcock, Heaney, and Mike Burrows.
Yeah. That I'll take that any day over
Sure.
Keller, Skeens, and Chandler.
I'm real worried we're going to get Chandler though, and
I would like to. This is the point of the season where you hate to say it, but sweeping a team like the Pirates in that situation when you are going to miss Skeens and Keller is not just an optimal situation, but a realistic one that you really need to strive for because you got to make up for some of these boneheaded games we've dropped the last couple of weeks too. And a sweep will make up for a 2-4 week pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, just something to keep an eye on. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Pirates continue to pirate and don't call them up until they're at home and do some other, shenanigans. But the comments I was hearing and reading out of Pittsburgh over the weekend, the front office is getting a lot of pressure for why Bubba Chandler isn't pitching in the majors, especially given how little the Pirates have at the moment, and they need something to cheer for and build around. And Bubba Chandler has nothing else to learn in AAA. He's ready to come up and dominate in the major leagues, and there's a non-zero chance the Pirates could be like, "Hey, Cubs, watch our rookie phenom."
What it must be like to have multiple rookie pitching phenoms.
What a world.
We'll do predictions for next week. The 3 games at Toronto, 3 at home against Pittsburgh. Sarah, I'll start with you. Predictions for next week.
I am going to be an optimist against my better judgments. We've got 6 games, right? I'm going to say the Cubs bounce back and go 4-2. I think they sweep the Pirates. I think they take at least one from the Blue Jays, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them just win both series outright. I don't know maybe they're disappointed by the trade deadline too. Like I saw that interview with Anthony Rizzo where he talked about how that does in fact energize players and makes them question stuff. I hope that that's not true, but I'm going to say 4-2. I'm going to be an optimist. I've been a downer all night.
Pat?
Yeah, after trashing the Cubs all night, and in light of logic, which would indicate that when you've got 2 Ben Brown starts and a Colin Ray start, the odds of going better than 3-3 are limited because then everybody else has to win their games, right? I too am going to say the Cubs are going to go 4-2. I have a feeling that whether it's salvage one in Toronto and then sweep the Pirates or 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3, I just think that the Cubs, so much of this is about in baseball is about regression to the mean, and the offense has just been so bad, right? The last couple of weeks, it can't not get better, right? I mean, I know that's wish casting, but logic would suggest that it will get better.
Yeah, I hope that we're not in offenses broken
right,
Theo territory.
If they have a losing week this week, then you're really going to that Milwaukee series like wounded something, animal of some sort.
You could fall out of the wild card race if they have another 2-4 week. And okay, so I'm going to be a downer again for 1 second. One of the things that makes me real nervous about this division race as it sits right now, the Reds under Terry Francona kind of appear to be gelling in the way all those Tito teams do.
Why isn't he retired? Why do you take the Reds job? That's dumb.
Because Terry Francona is a baseball dude. He just had to be a baseball dude. I think he didn't really want to step away from the game. I think that he probably, it was health issues, like he said. And as soon as he got that under control, he's like, I'm back. But the thing I've been watching with the Reds all season, they had weird stuff going on, right? Like they had the pitching thing go really well, but then the offense wouldn't hit. He's been mixing and matching lineups all season. He's been doing weird stuff. This Red team, but the last month or so, they kind of look legit. And it would not stun me if the Cubs continue to slump, that the Reds continue to rise. And, the Brewers are going to fall off eventually. You cannot win at a 700 clip forever. That's not a real thing. Even the Dodgers don't do it. The best Yankees teams didn't do it. But I don't know, man. A Terry Francona team down the stretch makes me real nervous.
Yeah.
I will warn people of this too. If the Brewers were to win the division, the Cubs need to make sure that they are the number 1 wild card team.
Yes.
Because if you are not the number 1 wild card team, if you're the number 2 or 3 wild card teams, and this is new since the Cubs are last in the playoffs, so let me explain it to those Cubs fans out there who may not be tracking on this. If you are not the number 1 wild card team of the 3 wild cards, you get to play the best of 3 all on the road, which I do not want to do if I'm the Cubs. I do not want to go to San Diego or some other exotic location and have to play 3 straight games or 3 games, assuming that we can win at least one of them, knowing that you have to win 2 out of 3. I don't want to go to Philadelphia, right? Because if they're the weakest of the division winners and you're the last of the wild cards, and you get to go there, it's just bad news. Don't want to do it.
No. Now I'm nervous about this 4-game Cincinnati series in September. Now I don't want that to matter for the wild card at all.
At least we get the Braves after they're dead. So
thank goodness you get 6 games against the Braves in September. That'll be
usually
nice.
That's a kiss of death, but this year may not be.
Oh my God! I just saw. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wild card standings, and I just realized something that stuns me. I watch these teams as close as anybody. The big thing for the Cubs in the first couple of months was the offense, right? Like they had the best run differential in baseball. They do not have the best run differential in baseball anymore. The Brewers do.
Yeah.
The Brewers have a plus 138 run differential. The Cubs have a 117. That is, that team doesn't even hit home runs.
No, it's amazing. What a number. 1 plus 138 best.
138 with a month and a half to go.
I am in agreement. 4-2 week this week. 1 in Toronto, 3 against Pittsburgh.
We can't be all wrong. So
I think
that means none of us are wrong.
Skeens debut, right? Am I remembering correctly? Like that was a crazy game where Skeens like walked a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then like the Cubs, like the Pirates were winning, but the Cubs came back.
Like they walked in like 4 runs or something.
Yeah, there was after Skeens came out. Like
after he
Skeens
came out,
the bullpen, there were like a whole bunch of guys that just could not get an out. So
was it like in May or something?
I
feel like I was taking my wife to Motobica Bee for Mother's Day or something. I don't know. So for some, I remember I was at the restaurant and I was checking my phone.
I remember I was driving during this game, and I don't remember where I was driving to
like a
or
Saturday,
why.
I think.
But I remember I was listening to the game on the radio as I was driving, and I was like freaking out in my car because I couldn't see Skeens' stuff, and I couldn't tell how close these pitches were.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at the tracker on ESPN on my phone, laughing. Ian Happ walks in a run, and then he goes to first, and he ends up walking in like 3 batters later. It was great.
That's the good news about playing the Pirates. No matter what starter is out there, the Pirates will pull out bullpen people at some point. And
they also had the Skeens game against Kyle Hendricks. Remember when the Cubs?
Yeah, I was at that game.
Were woefully behind, and then thank God Bedard came in the 9th and handed it all back to us. They intentionally walked PCA when he couldn't. I mean, you could have just thrown 3 balls like 2 feet off the plate, and he would have swung at all of them at the time. But they intentionally walked him and did him in.
Here's a pop quiz for y'all, and if you've already seen the answer, I mean, it's not a pop quiz anymore. Who is playing third base for the Pirates right now?
Right now?
Yeah, because they traded Cabrian Hayes to the Reds.
Yeah. Don't tell me it's a former Cub.
I have no idea.
It is not. I don't think it's a former Cub. I don't think he ever played for the Cubs.
Okay. Yeah, Hayes just got traded.
Very John Birdie-esque.
It's not it's not Nick Gonzalez, is it? No,
but that's a good guess. I think he's playing second.
Okay.
Isaiah Kiner-Falefa.
Oh yeah,
is the starting third baseman for the Pirates.
Yeah, of course he is.
Yeah, I remember him. He was with the Yankees, wasn't he?
For a hot minute. Also the Blue Jays, I believe. Like ran, very much in that, like, I'm surprised he hasn't been a Cub because he's in that mold of utility guy that Jed Hoyer loves. Like the John Birdie, Nick Madrigal, Miles Mastrobuoni.
Like, as a WAR guy, he's actually not been that bad, right? Like, but when you look at him, you're like, oh, come on.
Well,
or what is it good for? I'm just kidding.
Before we close the show, we always end with a Cub history player profile. And our guests get to choose who we profile this week. Because we have a lot of repeat guests, we turn to the patrons over at our Patreon, patreon.com/Wrigleyville Nation. Those folks support the show. They keep us ad-free every single year, and we reward them by letting them choose a player for us to profile. And today, that will be Rick Reuschel. That was chosen by our patrons, and so we will get to that in just a minute. Sarah, we're going to put you on the clock here before we wrap. You will have to select another Cub for us. I put the already selected Cubs that we've done so far this season in the chat. You can think of someone while we profile Rick Reuschel. But before we do, please remind, I'll give you a chance to plug all your stuff. Please remind our listeners how they can follow you and all your work on the internet.
You can find me on Twitter at BCB_Sarah. You can find me on Blue Sky at BCB Sarah. I'm on Blue Sky much more than Twitter these days. All of my Cubs writing is at bleedcubbyblue.com. I am one of the hosts of the Bleacher Bunch Network podcasts infrastructure. There's lots of podcasts over there, so check us out. If you are not already subscribed, we are a great complement to the wonderful work being done here at Wrigleyville Nation. And then if you are a fantasy baseball type, I write the Playing Time Tomorrow column for the NL Central over at Baseball HQ.
Excellent. And with that, Pat, we'll hand it off to you for Rick Reuschel.
I'm so excited that Rick Reuschel was chosen by our patrons. Thank you very much. Big Daddy, as he's called. I have long contended is the most underrated Cubs pitcher of the last half century, maybe longer, at least 50 years. Born in May of 1949 in Quincy, Illinois, basically more or less a hometown kid. Grew up a Cubs fan, for God's sake. Farm kid. His brother, Paul Reuschel, was actually drafted by the Cubs prior to him. He's a couple years older than Rick. And they both went to Western Illinois University, where they played baseball. Rick Reuschel was drafted in 1970 in the third round by the Cubs. He ended up. Oh, by the way, all the other Cubs drafted in that entire draft had negative WAR combined. So
I
yet
love
another
these draft
draft
recaps that we do during these profiles.
Theme, hasn't it?
God.
Right, where but for Rick Reuschel, they had a negative WAR draft. Listed at 6'4", 225. I suppose that was in 8th grade. Rick Reuschel was always known as a bigger pitcher, but also kind of a quick one. They used to pinch run him, which was kind of fun, and he was agile as a defender as well. So don't judge a book by its cover. He made his debut with the Cubs on June 19th of 1972, 2 years after being drafted. It's amazing, when you go back and we start looking at these players from the 70s, especially even the 80s, it's amazing how many of them were in the majors within like a year and a half of getting drafted, or the year after they were drafted. They really move people up a lot faster than they do now. But he faced one batter in his debut, and he retired that batter. That batter was Bobby Bonds, father of Barry Bonds. And then in his next game out as a starter, he had a 6-hit complete game, beginning what would be a very illustrious career as a Cubs starter. For 12 years, he pitched for the Cubs. He was the Baseball Digest Rookie All-Star team. His first full season, he went 10-8 with a 2.93 ERA and recorded 2.9 WAR. Not bad for a rookie. I wish we could do that now. In 1973, he was 14-15. Keep in mind, the early 70s. This was at the end of the Cubs' sort of glory days, where in the late 60s and early 70s, they were over 500 for like 5 years in a row. By 73, they had come down, and this was the Banks, Williams, Santo era. It was coming to a fast and close. Banks was already gone, and the others were on the cusp of leaving by then, or had. They had the Fergie Jenkins was still around, but not for long. Anyway, things were all deteriorating. So in 73, but he had a 3 ERA. He started 36 games, which was another constant of his career. The guy threw a lot of innings. He had a 5.8 WAR in his second season. His first full season, but his second season overall, which I thought was impressive. 5.8 WAR is, when was the last time a Cub had a 5.8 WAR? Probably like 2016. Well, probably Kyle Hendricks or Lester in 16. In 1975, a very memorable game, August 21st. So the 10 days from now will be the 50th anniversary of one of the more famous events in baseball history. Rick Reuschel and Paul Reuschel, his brother, who was a pitcher on the Cubs for a couple of years early in Rick's career, combined to pitch a shutout against the Dodgers. And I know this because I have the baseball card with the two of them in their powder blue uniforms holding the baseball, and it says first ever brother shutout combo. So they're the first brothers to ever
Still the only.
Still the only, yeah. Still the only one. So good for them. 1977 was the 1 year between 1972 and 1984 when the Cubs finished 500 or better. They finished exactly 500. Sadly, they were like 20 games over 500 in June, and it looked like they were going to go to the playoffs, and then they just went into a June swoon and never recovered. But that was a great year in 77. Bruce Sutter was great. Rick Reuschel was fantastic. He was 20-10 with a 2.79 ERA and 37 games started. He was an all-star, finished third in the Cy Young, 21st in the MVP. And in fact, that year I consider this one of the reasons why I think he's so underrated is he had one of the best pitching years in Cubs history. By WAR, he had 9.5 WAR. Fergie Jenkins once had a WAR more than that. No other Cub pitcher in the last 60 years has had a WAR more than 9.5. Not Maddox in 92, not Jake Arrieta in 2015. Jake Arrieta was 8.3, and remember how unhittable he was. for much of that season. Reuschel was just fantastic. And in one particular example against the dreadful Reds, hated Reds. Remember, the Reds were really good back in those days because they had Pete Rose and Joe Morgan and all those tools. Anyway, so they had those guys, and Rick Reuschel came in on 2 days rest in the 15th inning, and not only did he retire the side, but he got a base hit in the bottom of the inning and scored the winning run to get himself a win. But for that, he wouldn't have had 20 wins; he would have had 19. So good for him. In the period from 1973 to 1980, Rick Reuschel threw over 2,000 innings. He had 12 seasons of 200 or plus innings pitched. Can you name the last Cub pitcher to throw 200 plus innings in a single season, let alone 12 times in 12 years?
Is that an actual question?
Yeah.
Did Lester ever hit 200?
Lester did in 2016. And the only other Cub this century to hit 200 innings pitched from before 2016 was another good hitting pitcher.
Did Zambrano do it?
This guy could play a little left field too.
What?
Power hitter, pitcher.
You say left field, I think Travis Wood. I don't think Travis Wood
Yes.
ever.
Travis
No
Wood.
way.
Yes.
Travis Wood threw 200
Travis
innings?
Wood threw
That's
200
impossible.
innings one
That's
year.
impossible.
That is breaking my brain.
I thought Travis Wood too, and I'm like, wait, no, that's not
I
right.
looked it up.
Travis Wood is a reliever, but I forgot there was that time period where the Cubs were bad and he was
Yeah, there you go.
blocked out a lot of
so-
those pre-Theo years.
Wow.
In a very sad moment in 1981, just on the precipice of the baseball strike, the Cubs needlessly traded Rick Reuschel to the New York Yankees for Doug Bird, which was ridiculous because Doug Bird wasn't any good. Rick Reuschel then proceeded to take the Yankees to the World Series. In 1982, he tore his rotator cuff and he missed most of 83, but he came back to the Cubs in 83 and was with the Cubs in 83 and 84. In the 84 season, he was left off the playoff roster, which resulted in the Cubs not winning the World Series. His ERA was really high that year, but if you look at his underlying peripherals, which no one did back then, they were really good. Like it was just like stupid bad luck. So they could have used him, certainly, in game 4 and 5, but they didn't have him. In 1985, as a free agent, he went to the Pittsburgh Pirates, where the last place Pirates, by the way, at that point, where he promptly became comeback player of the year by going 14-8 with a 2.27 ERA and 6.2 WAR, and won a Gold Glove. Of course he did, right? He was good for the Pirates, and then he went to the Giants, made the All-Star game. It was a starting pitcher in the All-Star game in 87, with another great 3.09 ERA, and finished third in the Cy Young again, won a Gold Glove. By the way, when he finished third in the Cy Young in that 9.5 WAR year for the Cubs in 77, you're like, wow, third in the Cy Young. Who was ahead of him? So Steve Carlton won it that year, but nobody came anywhere near his WAR. It was just that Carlton, won 3 more games. And back then, if you won 23 instead of 20, and you were on a really good team, everybody was like, oh, I guess you're the best. His WAR was like 5.8 or something. So, I mean, it just completely better than heads and tails above every other pitcher. I think the second best pitcher that year was actually Bruce Sutter out of the bullpen, which is crazy from a WAR perspective to have a closer who's got like 7 WAR or whatever, 6 WAR. Anyway, we all know Rick Reuschel went on to the Giants, was an all-star there, blah, blah, blah. 1989 was the winning pitcher against the Cubs in the playoffs when they clinched, through 8 innings and gave up 0 earned runs to win the NLCS.
40 at that point.
He was 40. He was 40 years old, yes. 17-8 with a 294 ERA, 208 innings pitched, because a 40-year-old could pitch 208 innings back then, but now not so much. Now it would take 40 pitchers to throw 208 innings. That's the difference. Finished 8th in the Cy Young, took the Giants to the World Series. He has so for his career, he was 214 and 191 with a 3.37 ERA. He threw 3,548 innings. Just an amazingly durable pitcher for an entire career. He and Frank Tanana have something in common. You probably will not guess what it is, but they are the only 2 pitchers in the history of baseball to give up home runs to both Hank Aaron and Barry Bonds.
Huh.
Nice.
Two players who played like 20 years apart. I made that just to add a little complexity to that situation, or 15 years apart. Here's another one for you. I'm going to name some players. Tell me what these players have in common. They have one thing in common, all of them. Ready? Tony Gwynn, John Smoltz, Eddie Murray, Jim Palmer, Carlton Fisk, Ernie Banks, Don Drysdale, Don Sutton, Willie McCovey, Dave Winfield, Andre Dawson, and Billy Williams. What do they all? What can they all claim fame to? They all reside in New York.
Hall of Fame.
Yes. They're all members of the Hall of Fame. The other thing they all have in common is they all have less WAR than Rick Reuschel, who is 107 in the history of baseball, tied with Tim Raines. The only players who are not in, who are above him, who are not in the Hall of Fame, are people like Pete Rose, Rafael Palmeiro, Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, and then three other players, all of whom have often been talked about for the Hall of Fame: Lou Whitaker, Bobby Grich, totally underrated second baseman, by the way, Bobby Grich, and Carlos Beltran, who still may make it. He's still eligible and has been on the ballot. They're just making him sweat it out for a couple of years, as they are prone to do. But Rick Reuschel, you never hear it being talked about at all for the Hall of Fame, do you? And yet, look at the company he keeps.
Wild. So
Rick Reuschel is my underrated Cub of the last 50 years, and thankfully somebody finally gave me the time to make my case for why Rick Reuschel deserves the Hall of Fame, and was a great Cub pitcher and had one of the best starting pitching seasons in the history of the Cubs, and also won several Gold Gloves.
Thank you to the patrons over at patreon.com/Wrigleyville Nation for not only keeping us ad-free, but bringing us Rick Reuschel as a great choice.
Big Daddy.
Thank you for that. And now, Sarah, we turn to you. Who will we be profiling next week?
So he's not in the Rick Reuschel tier, but we're going to go with another pitcher. Theodore Roosevelt Lilly III.
Nice.
One of my favorite
Lilly would be fun.
Eras of Cubs watching, commenting, discussing were the years on Bleed Cubby Blue where we made a bunch of Chuck Norris, Ted Lilly jokes, although like Chuck Norris can do some crazy thing and Ted Lilly can too. So anyway, enjoy Ted Lilly.
Tow truck driver or something?
What was that?
Is he a tow truck driver or something? Is that
Dude,
true?
I hope so. That's so cool. I don't know.
I
but
feel like that may be true,
cool.
but I'm not sure if I made that up.
I just also love that his name is Theodore Roosevelt Lilly III.
Yes.
And it's timely. He's a former Blue Jay as well, and the Cubs are playing the Blue Jays next week, so it'll be timely for next week's episode. Great choice, and always a fun time catching up with you, Sarah, and talking Cubs. It was a pleasure to have you on. Thanks again for joining us this week.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Love chatting baseball with y'all. Anytime.
Thanks for coming on.
And you can follow us at Wrigleyville Nat on all the social media platforms. If you can't support the show financially, like our friends at patreon.com/Wrigleyville Nation, you can support the show for free in a couple of ways. One is going to our YouTube channel, where the video version of this podcast is. YouTube.com, search for the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. Give us that subscribe, a few likes. It helps us work the algorithm so other Cub fans can find the show. And if you don't consume your podcast via the video form, that's okay. Just throw a subscribe and a like. It just helps us that way. Continue to get your audio content through your podcatcher of choice. Tell your Cub fan friends about the show. Show them how to subscribe to a podcast. If Spotify is your podcatcher of choice, the audio and video version of the podcast is available right there, also in the Spotify app as well. And with that, we're going to wrap it up and call it a podcast. Pat, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.